Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to cook up some salmon, some herby chicken rice, asparagus, sweet potatoes, corn, all sorts of jazz. We're going to bake up our sourdough loaf and make up a cream sauce for our salmon. So we're kind of going early today because my son has a double header tonight, so we won't get home till late. So we've got to get everyone fed. I just made a traditional loaf yesterday. It's been cold proofing in the fridge since last night. Let it go out. Not sure I added enough flour in there last night. I'll just slide this off slowly so we don't ruin the form of it. I did this really late last night, so I was not paying attention, but I did not add enough flour. But that's okay. It won't be ruined. It's just won't have as smooth of a top. So I'm going to put my score through this. It'll be a tumor. It's not a tumor. Okay, so I'm going to put my big expansion score right through where I kind of it got stuck, but it won't ruin anything. And then we're going to just give a really simple score here. This is my plain traditional loaf, which is, I think, our favorite. Okay, let's get this in our hot Dutch oven here. I have this preheated to 500 degrees, so it's nice and hot. I did not put this on there evenly today either. Okay, let's slide this guy in. Oops, we're just a hot mess today. A little wrinkly.
First time doing sourdough?
It makes it seem like it. That's what happens when you're trying to get things out of your normal schedule. I said we never eat this early, so I feel like I just finished cooking lunch. And, here. We're going to pop this in the oven at 500 degrees for 20 minutes with the lid on. And then we'll take the lid off and bring it down to 450. So let's get that going. Okay. So, apparently that was the hardest part of the meal. You wouldn't think. Okay, we're gonna get our rice going because that takes about 30 or so minutes. I've got jasmine rice. We're gonna give it a nice rinse. So I'm gonna put it in a fine mesh strainer here. That way we can kind of rinse off the white powderiness of it. This is gonna give you a better end product. So it will make it to where your rice isn't mushy, but you have nice grains and tender. So we're just going to give it a couple good rinses here. You don't have to rinse it for ages. There's some people who are like, rinse it for 10 minutes. No. Like 30 seconds is fine. Just get that initial off. Give it a couple of shakes here. I have 1.5 cups of rice, and I'm going to add that to 2 1/4 cups of water. I'm going to turn my back burner on to high until it comes to a boil. Then we will bring it down to low. I'm going to add in a scoop of chicken bouillon. It's better than bouillon, stuff's the best. So you could use straight up chicken broth for this, but this has so much more flavor. So we're going to add in a big heaping scoop here. And this is going to give our rice a really mild chicken flavor to it. But it really is just going to be nice and savory. You're not going to be like, oh, that's chicken. It's just going to have a great flavor. And we're going to add in some herbs as well. Some green onions just to give the rice a little bit more flavor because I prefer my rice to be like not plain. Unless I'm eating, Asian food and you've got a nice saucy thing. But for these, we want it flavored to go along with our salmon. So we're going to cut up, let's see. I'm going to say, let me get these 2 fat green onions. And we're going to add them into our rice as well as some fresh herbs I have. We're going to give these a nice little slice. And this is going to give it a nice little onion flavor to it. Not only will it be more visually pleasing because you'll have those specks of green in it, but the flavors will work really well together. Okay. I'm going to go over a couple little cuts of this. So we've got our green onions minced up for this. And then we're going to add in, I got 2 sprigs of oregano and a couple sprigs of parsley. We're going to save some of that other for our salmon here. And I'm going to take the leaves off of my oregano and add this. There, it's very fragrant. The stalks off some of my parsley. And then we're just going to go over this again and mince it up. And then we're going to add this to our rice. And again, this is just going to, it's just a really easy way to jazz up some plain rice. But it will just make the meal overall just a little bit better. Here we go. And that's what I will say. Some of my kids, you know how I am not a short order cook. I make one meal for the family. Nothing, you know, I'm going to cook somebody else. So some of them, they'll eat their weight in rice because they'll like that over some of the veggies or other parts. So I always try to make things that people like. I'm going to give this a nice stir as I'm steaming my face. There we go. Okay, so when that comes to a boil, we'll give it another stir, and then we'll bring it right back down to low. Okay, let's prep up our sweet potatoes. Our salmon we're going to do towards the very end because salmon doesn't need long to cook. I've got 3 sweet potatoes here. What we're going to do is we're going to give them a quick peel, and then we will cube them up, and we'll coat them in some oil and some spices. And we're going to pop them in the oven to kind of roast, to kind of go up with our meal tonight because I love sweet potatoes and I think they pair well with salmon. And we're trying to do kind of a lighter fare tonight because I don't want my son going into his basketball game, a doubleheader, being like stuffed. So I wanted a little bit lighter fare with dinner tonight. That way he can come home and stuff himself with some scotcheroos. Everyone's talking about the batch of scotcheroos that I made last night, how they were my best batch yet. And I have to agree, they are my best batch. I love a good scotcheroo. Okay. Oop, forgot a little bit here. So 2 down, 1 more to go. Again, you can peel a sweet potato with a peeler if you wanted to, but I find using your chef knife and just sliding it along the edge of your sweet potato gives you a close enough peel to it, helps get off some of that more fibrous parts of the sweet potatoes that are a bit drier, leaves you with that brighter orange tender center. And it's a lot easier because sweet potatoes are pretty like funky shaped. So they don't always peel up well. Same with like, butternut squash, some of the other crazier squashes. Here we go. And then we'll take off some of these. Okay, let me get my scraps out of the way here. And then we're going to cube these up. Now, sweet potatoes are much harder to cut through than a regular potato. They're very stiff on the inside, but it's funny because when they cook up, they're so much more soft and tender. So we're going to cut these down, and then I'm going to cut them into thirds because I don't want super huge cubes because I kind of want them to cook up in about 20 minutes from when we take the lids off of our sourdough. These are going to cook in the oven at 450.
Did you have a question? Are you self-taught?
Yes, I am self-taught. I've been cooking since I was 13 years old. I started actually cooking for my family. Then it started out 1 meal a week, and then I slowly, gradually took on more and more until my parents stopped cooking altogether. I still cook for them. I make all their meals. I send them home send them food. They come over and pick it up. So they're now, I think, reliant. I don't know if they know how to cook anymore. So, I can tell you, my stepdad, he only knew how to cook very few meals to begin with, and I can count them on my hands. They were chicken wings and Cornish game hens, and then hash browns. That was about it. Those were the meals he could cook. He always made Cornish game hens on my mom's birthday. We all had like an individual Cornish game hen, which are little teeny tiny chickens type things. They're really cute. And then he always made chicken wings on Halloween. Those were the 2 meals he made. And then he could do hash browns in a skillet for our Sunday kind of brunches. Now, my mom, she used to cook all sorts of things growing up. We were a big family, so we had a lot of like stews and soups. Like, I feel like spaghetti and tacos and pizza night, those were all like staples of the 90s. It's funny, like, you growing up, you feel like you ate like the same rotation of meals, Taco Tuesday, and now I feel like my kids rarely eat the same meal twice in a month. We might have the same staple protein, but I am always changing it up, giving them variety. Okay, we've got our sweet potatoes all diced up here. We're going to put these on our tray, and then we're going to coat them with some good olive oil and garlic salt, onion powder, and a little bit of oregano. I feel like dried oregano, just works so well with sweet potatoes. It just pairs really nicely. And I'm a savory girl when it comes to my sweet potatoes. I like them savory and not sweet. Let's see. This guy's a little big. I'm trying to get them all about the same size so they cook up about the same time. So we're going to take a little bit of olive oil here. We're going to drizzle it over. We want about 2 tablespoons. Really give a nice coating on it because sweet potatoes are kind of like sponges. So they'll kind of soak up the oil right there. You want to make sure you get a good coating on it. We're going to get a couple good shakes of onion powder around here. This is going to give a nice savory flavor. It's going to be about a teaspoon when you come all, together. Got myself some new garlic salt after the garlic salt fiasco of 2025. For those of you who weren't there during my shrimp and grits, apparently I did not check, but I had earlier in the stream, I had popped off the top of my garlic salt to measure out, and I forgot to put it on. And so thinking that the shaker top was on, I just opened it up and I shook my bottle over my grits or over my sauce for the grits, and well, a whole bottle of garlic salt went on it. Okay, it is on secure, guys. We're going to give a good shake of garlic salt over. You probably need about a half a teaspoon here. You don't need too much. And now we're going to put on our oregano, dried oregano, and you want about a teaspoon of this. So we're going to give this a good shake. And I said you can't go wrong with the oregano. The more the better. Okay. That should be good. Now we're going to just go through and we're going to make sure we coat everything with that olive oil. We put it on first. So that's why I keep everything in a big pile in the beginning, and then we'll spread it out. But you want them to be glistening. And that will just help them they'll help them crisp up, but not dry out. Because if dried out sweet potatoes are not good. Okay, we're going to spread them out so they have room to breathe and crisp up one thing. And I'm going to set this over here. We'll put this in when we take the lid off of our sourdough. Okay. Get that cut off. In my hands. Let's just give our rice a little stir here. I saw just a light simmer. So I always like to stir it a couple of times before we turn it down low because I want it to be at a true boil before. So once it comes back up to another boil, then we'll turn it down low and put the lid on. Okay, let's give our salmon. We're going to cut our fillets up and then we'll season them. And I'm just going to cut through this one. Since it's a end one, it's going to be a little bit thicker. But then I'm going to do for about 1 inch to 1.5 inches cuts on here. And this is skin on. So when we fry it, we're going to saute it, pan fry. We're going to start with presentation side down, which means we'll have the skin facing up. There we go. I'm just making sure I cut through my skin all the way here. And then these last one. And I always try to cut them about the same thickness so that they'll cook up evenly. We're done with this one.
Is it true that you need different cutting boards for different foods?
I highly recommend it. Now, if you are really good at sanitizing between using them, then you could do it. But like, I would not prep up my vegetables and salmon on it right now because you're going to need to wash them in between use. I actually have, this is my meat cutting board because it has, as you can see, a nice little ridge, which means any of the natural juices in your meat or your fish can go down to the sides. And I just find that that works really well for my meats. And then I have a big flat one for my veggies that I use, my veggies and my fruits. I typically use a wooden one for my breads because I don't need to like sanitize it as much. We're going to sprinkle a little bit of garlic salt over the edge of these. Here we go. And we're going to do a simple seasoning on our salmon here because I am going to make a kind of a cream, an herby creme fraiche that will go well with it. So I'm doing simple on here, but we'll have lots of flavors in there. My son told me, please don't put lemon on the salmon again. He does not like lemon, and he loves salmon, and he said I ruined his salmon last time by putting so much lemon on it. He said it was fine, but the lemon slices underneath were too lemony for him. Everybody else thought it was the best. So I said, okay, I'll keep my lemon to the side. I normally always do, but I didn't think it was going to bother him that much. We're going to do our dried oregano on here. Again, a little bit of our onion powder. This is going to give it a nice savory flavor. And then I'm going to go grab my pepper and we'll sprinkle a little bit of the pepper over as well. Got that right over here. But let's see, we've got a lovely boil on our rice. So I'm going to give this a good stir. And now I'm going to turn this down all the way to my lowest setting. And we're going to put our top on and we'll let it cook on low and steam cook. Got my pepper here. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of pepper over this. A little goes a long way. It's one of those things in my early years of cooking, I avoided pepper like the plague because I thought I didn't like it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, pepper's amazing. It adds the best flavor. Why did I think for years that it was so spicy? It is not as spicy as you think. I will say fresh ground pepper is more spicy than pre-ground. So I typically use pre-ground because I am the biggest spice baby out there. Yeah, let's prep up our asparagus. This is going to go in the oven when we have about 10 minutes left on our sourdough. So we're going to get them prepped. These are pre-washed already in the bag, washed and trimmed. Now, even though the bag says trimmed, we are going to trim off even more because they dry out really easily, and this is going to be very chewy at the end. So no matter what, I always cut off the last inch of my asparagus sauce because it's just going to be chewy and fibrous, and it's going to feel like you're chewing on a stick if you don't. So do it, even if it says it's trimmed, because it hasn't been trimmed enough. And it just sits, whenever they actually packaged these to when we got it, they've been sitting in losing and dehydrating. You can even see, like, this one is white. And if you look there, it is just very fibrous at the bottom. It's not good. So just cut that off. I always do about an inch. So, and you're not wasting anything. This is just going to make it taste better. Otherwise, what it will be is you'll have your asparagus tender, but these will be chewy. And so do it. You'll thank me later. I know sometimes when you're food, you're afraid that you're wasting something. It's like trimming off fat. You're afraid that you're taking away from your meat product, but you're making it better. Okay. So we've got all of this trimmed off. Now, if you were going to make an asparagus soup, you could leave those, boil them up for the flavor, but they're just not great for eating. Let me grab my baking sheet. We're going to get these all set out. We'll give them a quick drizzle of oil, and then we'll garlic salt them up and add a little bit of pepper. So I'm going to bunch them up together so that when I kind of drizzle the oil over, I don't have to use as much. You don't need a whole lot of oil for asparagus. A little goes a long way. So I'll probably use about max a tablespoon for this, maybe not even. There we go. And then I'm going to give a couple good shakes of garlic salt over. And a couple pinches of black pepper. That's about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then what you want to do is you want to roll them back and forth in that oil and that salt and pepper to really kind of coat each one. That's why I'm saying a little really goes a long way. And then we're going to spread it out and try to get them to where they're all resting on the pan without being on top of each other. But it's okay if you have a couple on top of each other. But that way they'll get the heat from the pan evenly and cook up well, so that they'll all be done at about the same time. Put a couple over here. And then we'll bring this over here. I'm going to wash my hands. There we go. Okay. We can start prepping our herbs for our creme fraiche that we're going to be making. So let me get all of them. I've got in here, for those who can't tell, we have oregano. I have both plain and Greek oregano, some parsley, some fresh basil, and I'm going to grab a little bit more. And before we do that, our sourdough is calling us there. Let me turn our water up. Okay, so now it's baked 20 minutes at 500 with the lid on. Okay, I hear you. We're going to come take the lid off. Look at that beautiful pop on there, even though I butchered it when I was taking it out. You know what? Sourdough is so forgiving. It will, it's nice to you, even if you make mistakes. Okay, I'm going to put this on at 450. And then I'm going to pop my sweet potatoes in here to start baking as well. So 450, or let it start, then we'll set our timer. But let me grab my sweet potatoes. We're going to bake those. Asparagus only needs about 8 to 10 minutes, so we're going to do that at the closer towards the end. So I'm going to put that in here, and in 12 minutes, I'm going to set my timer so I can put the asparagus in, and then I'll set it for 8 minutes for the final part. But the last part of the sourdough is 20 minutes at 450. This is going to give you a lovely, light golden brown crust, which is going to be perfect because it's chewy without being uber crunchy. Okay, let's get our herbs chopped up here for our herby creme fraiche sauce. I'm going to use some more. My basil needs to have a little rest days outside before I harvest any more of it. I know, I was like, this weekend, I've got to go and pick up more herbs. It surprises how much fresh herbs I use, but I will say it is one easy way to elevate your cooking without doing a lot. Just changing from the dried to the fresh is just going to make any meal seem more restaurant quality. So again, this herb blend, we have basil, parsley, oregano, and then we're going to add in some green onions for this. I'm going to chop off the whiter parts of my green onion here because this is going to be for a kind of a fresher base, so I don't need the as astringent flavor that the white part gives. I want more of the mild green onion flavor. Chives would also work really well. Normally, my backyard just grows so much natural chives, but for some reason, we had them, and now they're like all gone. So I don't know if my dogs are eating them or whatnot, but I might have to grab some chive plants. I've always been able to just harvest some wild ones, but I have not seen, I've even sent my kids out like to go in the community lot. All of our houses back up on these big community lots, and I'm like, look for green onions. If you see the chives, let me know, we'll get some. None. So I don't know why they're not here anymore. They were here early spring, but I haven't seen any of them since. Okay, we're gonna get this really minced up nicely. Here we go. And we're gonna just go over, the more cuts that you make on your herbs, the more flavor that it will bring out. And I really want these flavors to come out in our little creme fraiche that we're making. Because my oldest daughter is always like, where's the sauce? She always needs to have a sauce or a gravy on anything we make. And I kind of have to agree with her. I think it's pretty delicious. Okay. Let me grab a bowl for this. We're going to put our herbs in here. So we'll put them out at the bottom. Make sure we don't want any of it to go to waste. And heavy whipping cream. This will not work with half and half. It will make it runny. Milk will not work. You need heavy whipping cream for this to really work. We're going to put in about, I want to say, 1/4 of a cup to 1/3 of a cup. A good little base. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the juice from a lemon. I think we might only need half. And we're going to squeeze it over our cream. And the acid in the lemon will cause the cream to curdle and thicken up. And this is going to be our lovely creme fraiche. So we're going to let it sit for a second. And then when we stir it up, it should be a lot thicker. I'm going to pick out the seed that fell in. I think one lemon, this was a pretty juicy lemon, will work. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. Okay. I've got my water boiling here. We have some corn on the cob because, in the summer, you've got to have corn on the cob. So we're just going to pop them in here. Let's see. You know what? I might break each one in half. Makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to pop these in our water. Let me grab all of them over here. And we're going to boil them up. I've got my water nice and hot. But luckily, with corn on the cob, you really can't mess them up. It's pretty hard. You can boil them for a while before you've got like your overdone part. So we're going to have them in there, boil and get nice and tender because who doesn't love corn on the cob? And let's actually, before we add some salt in there, let's get our oil starting to heat up for our salmon since we're on the final countdown. Okay. For our pan-fried salmon, we're just going to do kind of a light, I just want enough to kind of cover the bottom of my pan. This is a pretty big pan, so I need a bit more than if I'm using a smaller one. But I want to try to be able to cook 4 fillets at a time. That way I don't have a lot sitting. And you don't want to overcrowd them, otherwise they will thing out. We're going to add, I've got some corn silk on me. We're going to add in a little bit of garlic salt to our creme fraiche. That way it has a nice kind of flavor to it. And let me grab a spoon and then we're going to mix it up. Here we go. So you see how it has, let me get this, corn silk is all over me. But there, you see how thick it is now? That's just the acid from the lemon juice thickening up the cream. And this is kind of, it's like a great way to make a homemade sour cream too. But this will be so delicious on top of our salmon. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mush those herbs into it to bring out as much flavor as possible. This way it will just be so lovely. There we go. And as it sits in there, it's going to bring out those herbs even more. Okay. We are pretty much done with this, so I can set it over here. I'm going to wash my hands because that corn silk is bothering me.
You have a question? Where did you get your skirt?
My skirt, this, honestly, it's not a skirt. It's a dress. I actually got it. This is kind of cheesy, from Amazon. I love Amazon, but I got it there. It's like a spaghetti strap dress over there. But you know, it's really flowy for the summer, and I just tied it to make it kind of look cool. I like to pretend I'm fashion chic, but I throw a sweatshirt over everything, so it's not that fashionable. But good old Amazon. I think the place, it was called like a Mogan or something like that, or the Mogan. The Mogan is a brand on Amazon. Love it. Okay, let me get my fish spatula out and some tongs. Before I use my tongs, I'm just gonna push my corn down. You can see the corn is already starting to get this nice dark yellow color. It's not quite done yet, but that is on your way to knowing when it's done. Okay, let me check my oil here. We're gonna do my little water drop test. If it sizzles right away, we'll know it's done. There we go. It's actually nice and hot. Now, with the salmon, we are going to cook it presentation side down first. That means we're gonna put it with the skin up. This is going to make it, give you the best crisp on it versus if you do it the other way, because the pan is the hottest right now. And I'm gonna get these all up. Now you can also use like filleted with the skin off. A lot of times I use the skin off too. I'm gonna put a little spacing between each one of these. There we go. Because I want it to cook up nicely.
So you have a question. Do you have a garden for your herbs, and is it hard to maintain?
I do have a garden for my herbs, and I will say, I want to say it's not hard to maintain if you don't neglect your plants. I have enlisted my children to help me water them because I do a really great job getting them all planted up and ready and watering them for about 2 weeks straight. And then it's that maintenance phase where I'm like, life happens. But it's not so bad if you have raised garden beds. Raised garden beds are much nicer than if you plant them into the ground itself, especially if you live in a place like we live in Tennessee where the soil is awful. It's clay, like pure clay under there. So the raised garden beds really help with it. And it makes weeding easier because it doesn't, overweed as much. Okay, let's get, because these will be flipping over. I'm going to get a baking sheet to put these on when they're done. Okay, and with salmon, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to cook fish. Fish goes fairly fast. That's why I said we were waiting for the end of it. It's about 2 minutes on each side. What I am doing is I'm looking for the edge of my salmon to get a nice kind of crispy edge. And you'll see the goldening up because I'm looking for a nice kind of golden brown. And this is pale. I want it to be a little bit darker than this. I want it to have a nice little crunch on it because you want a crispy edge salmon. Because that crispy edge, you can't beat it. It has a great little flavor to it. And I will say, tongs for the flipping and the initial putting in are great. This is a fish spatula. This is really nice for when you're finally moving it out and then when you're taking that skin off, because the way this is designed is it's for you to go right underneath the skin and remove the cooked product up. It works really, really well, especially if you're not a fan of eating the skin. And we are not fans of eating the skin. Some people like it. I do not like it. Okay. So let's get these flipped. So now you can see we've got this kind of orangish, crispy edging going on. Beautiful. And you can't beat this. There. Just beautiful, crispy edge to the salmon is just gorgeous. Okay. Let's go check on. Oh, perfect. We have about 20 seconds. So let's go get our asparagus ready to go in. We can sneak a peek at the salmon, or not the salmon, at the sourdough. So asparagus doesn't need long to cook up. That's why we're putting it in last, but that way everything can kind of get done at the same time. 5 seconds left. Look at the timing there. Beautiful. So here's our gorgeous sourdough, looking gorgeous. I'm gonna turn these. Try to get the most direct heat on everyone. And
yeah, a question. What oil are you cooking in?
I am cooking in olive oil. So I really like olive oil for most of my cooking needs. I don't heat it so high till it gets to its smoking point, which is around 400 or a little bit hotter. I typically like to heat my oil up to about 350, and then I keep it around that temperature by just turning down my stove as I go. And that's kind of my, like, the bread and butter with it. That's what I really like, because I find if I have to use other oils, that means my pantry is just lots of different ones. So I typically buy the big old jugs of this, and I use it for everything because I can use it for salad dressings, marinades, frying in, even cooking or baking. So I stick with just one oil. But I know lots of people like peanut oil, vegetable oil, coconut oil. You could use whatever you want, avocado oil. But for me, olive oil is my favorite. Okay, these are cooking up nicely. With the skin on the bottom, they're gonna cook a little bit longer than with the just with no skin. So over here, let's check on our rice since we're getting to about the time. I'm gonna give it a nice stir. See how fluffy it is. This is because we rinsed it out. It is a really big to make sure you rinse your rice. It gives you a really fluffy instead of a mushy texture because you've removed a lot of that starch. I'm gonna taste it. Perfect. I'm gonna turn that off and let it sit on the heat because we are gonna be ready in a few minutes here. Okay. Let me pull out let me get a tong and let's look at our corn. See if it's nice and ready. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. You've got it the bright yellow all the way around. You can even see where I've broken them off. So my corn is good. I am going to keep it in the water. Don't take it out of your hot water, otherwise your corn will shrivel up. So cook it to the point where it's just perfect, then turn it off and let it sit. You won't overcook it.
I have a question. Do the kids like salmon?
Kids love salmon. It's one of their favorite meals. They absolutely love it. I will say, last time I made it, Torn was so sad because it was his favorite meal, but I put too much lemon on it for him, and he does not like lemon at all. So I said I would not put the lemon on it. I'd make it in the sauce. So we've got our first one cooked up. We're going to put it right here to the side. Beautiful. Got those. And this one should be nice. Perfect. So we got our first batch done. We're going to get our second ones on. And then I'm going to turn the warming center. So I have a warming center on my thing. If I put a tray on it, it will keep it nice and hot and warm. It'll keep the tray hot, almost like at a restaurant. They have those warming plates. And that way I can keep my salmon nice and hot while I'm finishing up the second batch. Because the reality is I only have so many burners on the stove. And I've got a big family to feed here. So there's always going to be a batch that has to sit first. But I always find that those are the best for my little ones because they've cooled off and they're not super hot. Okay. Let's grab this and put it over here. Let me get a small little pot out. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to rotate my salmon. Put it right there. I've got my butter. We're going to melt some butter because who doesn't love their corn brushed with butter? So I'm going to just use a half a stick of butter in here. We're going to melt it up, and then we're going to add a little bit of salt to it so that we can brush this over our corn when we take it out, and that way we'll have it nice and ready.
What's the best way to tell that salmon is done?
For me, when I'm cooking it, I know that salmon in and of itself only needs about 2 minutes on each side to cook. But if you look here, if you look at the side, you can tell that it is no longer pink on the side, which means it will be cooked all the way through, and that it's got a nicer firm touch to it. It's not super spongy. That's the best way to tell. But again, knowing that salmon needs only about 2 minutes for a cut this size. Now, if you have a big fillet, that takes much longer to cook versus individual fillets, because individual fillets will cook up well. But you can kind of see the gradula as you're cooking it, like here. I'm going to see if you can see in here. But you can see right by the skin there, it's still pink. So when we flip it, we'll start cooking it from the other side up, and that's how we know that it's going to cook all the way through. Okay, look at these. Nice kind of crispy edge on them. Beautiful. And of course, you know, thinner bits cook faster than the thicker ones. And I'm cooking these on, I will say my oil is probably around a 350. I have my heat on at a medium. I had it up higher, but once it was hot, I turned it down so that my oil wouldn't smoke and continue to get hot. We're done with these. Let's get a little bit, where's my salt? Over here. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in here, about just a pinch or so. And that is we're going to brush that over the corn because we'll know that it will be nice and ready for that. Okay. There we go. We've got just a little bit left over on our bread, so we'll grab that in just a second. Let me grab a plate for these because we are just about ready to serve up. I'm going to get my corn out so I can brush with the butter. That way they'll also cool off a little bit before I serve them, because these are going to be piping hot for about 5 to 10 minutes. My kids won't be able to eat them. And as soon as Teddy sees the corn, he's going to want it. Teddy loves corn on the cob. And sometimes I have to like run it underwater to cool it off fast enough for him. Take my butter over here. Try and see if we can get it all on a single layer as much as possible. I'm going to brush a little bit with our butter. This is our salted butter. We're just going to brush it over. It helps prevent having to have the kids all butter their corn and salt it if I do it first. And then we'll do it right again right before we serve. It just lets these flavors come down. And there we go. So we'll save a little bit of the butter towards the end, but I always like to get a nice kind of coating on it because it just really lets those flavors sink in. Let's go grab our sourdough because that should be ready. Okay. Reveal time. A look at everything. I'm going to cancel the temperature off because everything is ready. Look at this gorgeous sourdough loaf. It's nice and hot. We're going to put it right here on my cutting board that I have waiting. And then I'm going to grab my sweet potatoes out and my asparagus. There we go. So we've got our oven roasted sweet potatoes, and then you can tell the asparagus is ready because they've got this vibrant green. They haven't turned brown yet. When they turn brown, you know they've overcooked. You want them at this bright green. Okay, we are down to the last bit. I'm going to dump this out. Look at that poof festoon behind me. Okay, before we serve up, I do want to take my sourdough out of my Dutch oven because my Dutch oven will stay really hot. And so I like to get it off pretty quickly. I put it in funky, so we'll see if it's coming off. But here is our gorgeous traditional loaf. Look at this nice, beautiful pop here. That's from our expansion score. And the reason we take it out, because look at this nice bottom. You want it to be nice and golden light. Look, a little bit of that parchment paper there, but nice thing. If you leave it in there, it will get darker. And I love a lovely blonde crust, and it's just so lovely. You can just kind of hear the crunch, but it's not going to be rock hard. It's going to be perfect and chewy. Okay. Our salmon is done. So I'm going to slide these off onto our warming tray, and then we can plate up. If they want to come with me. There we go. These are kind of the ugly duckling ones. The first ones were my pretty cuts, and those are my stragglers. Okay, let me get a plate out. I've got our rice ready. It is nice and hot. Okay, let's get our serving utensils. Got a spoon for this, tongs for my corn, and then tongs and a spatula to scoop up. Okay, and let's not forget, almost forgot my herby sauce. Okay, we are ready to plate up. We're going to start with our herby rice that we made with chicken bouillon, some fresh herbs in there, green onions. We have a lovely corn on the cob with our salted butter on it, our crispy fried salmon fillet with that nice crispy edge. And we're going to put a little bit of our herby creme fraiche on it, which will like slowly ooze down over it. Our sweet potatoes that we roasted in olive oil, garlic, salt, and some oregano. And then, of course, let's not forget our oven roasted asparagus, where we've got this lovely pop of green. Let me grab a few more because asparagus are my favorite. And they are all just perfect. And don't forget, we are going to be serving them with our sourdough bread. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes here, you can just go to that link, search for the title of our recipe, pan-fried salmon or whatnot, and then rewatch us at home and cook along with us again. We also have an Amazon storefront, so if you saw any of the cooking stuff that you like to use, I just pretty much add all of my Amazon previous purchases over there because we do get so many questions about, oh, what pan was that? Or what spatula, or where'd you get that from there? So you could just go there. If you saw something you were interested in, you can go check it out. The link is on our profile page as well. So you could go there and see, check it out. I do make a small commission off of it. So that just helps us out. But again, it's more about sharing what we're using with people. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.